The biggest one I found is burnout. And that happened, I found more when I spent a year job hunting or starting the business. And at that time I was following the shoulds, you need to work so many hours. You should be doing this, you should be grinding, etc.
Those shoulds. Welcome to Inspiration Contagion, where we spread inspiration one story at a time. I am your host, Holly Jean Jackson. Each interview spotlights transformational business leaders, their stories, challenges, and advice for how you too can lead yourself and others through inspiration. Learn how you too can achieve peak performance, build more revenue, and lead the legacy you were meant to lead. Welcome back to episode 129. This week I have a special guest with me. Badassery is defined as the behavior, characteristics, or actions regarded as formidably impressive. And that's exactly what Beatrice Gutknecht, the founder of Badassery by B, brings to the table. She's about taking the seemingly boring business and shaking up how they're seen inside out through practical strategy and actions to stand the heck out, not just a 69-page document, pretty designs, or templates. With that, welcome, Beatrice.
Thanks so much for that badass intro and for having me on, Holly. It's fantastic.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I'm super excited for this conversation. And I want to start off with my favorite question. Beatrice, what makes you an inspirational leader? Or what would you say is your secret sauce?
Oof. I would say it's very much going out there to listen for those different opinions. When we're having a conversation, it's easy to just listen, to just be like, okay, like I want this out of the conversation. But, we all have a different upbringing, different culture, different setting, etc. And that will allow for different opinions. I mean, some might be extreme, and we don't have to necessarily agree with those opinions. But for me, it's all about like understanding, okay, this is your opinion. How did you come to this? Why, etc. So listening out for those different ideas. And that's led to a lot of different ideas coming to life.
Yeah, I can see that. And I feel like that's a really important and timely conversation today, too, where people today have never wanted or needed to feel seen or heard more than they do today. And so, what a cool and badass, inspiring skill and secret sauce to really not just listen for what's in it for you, but listen in it for their opinion, their beliefs, and then ask those questions of where this came from so that you can learn and understand. And my goodness, that is certainly what everybody in the world wants today, is to be heard, to be understood, and to be seen, and when we actually ask those follow-up questions, that leads to very powerful things. It's amazing.
Not only in a way where it's like you're trying to convince them, because
Right.
Sometimes it's like somebody's probing, but they're probing in a way that they're just trying to convince you that you're wrong. And it's like,
yeah,
that doesn't actually help. People can tell.
Yeah. So probing from a lens of curiosity, understanding, and compassion versus probing based on your own worldview and world lens of convincing them elsewhere. Yeah. And we all know what that feels like and looks like 100%.
Yeah.
So Beatrice, what would you say inspiration means to you in your world?
I would say it's pushing back on the shoulds. So to elaborate, a lot of the time inspiration is covered or hidden by all of these shoulds that we have to follow in life, be it this is the path that you should be following, or in business, looking to what's the shoulds in your industry. These are the common things. So we just follow this. So there's no real inspiration in those shoulds. So questioning those and pushing back on them is where I see the inspiration lies.
Ooh, my goodness, that's heavy. That's deep. That's the first time anybody has answered that way around inspiration. Pushing back on the shoulds. My goodness. Every time I hear clients say should, it's like, ugh. And the reason is because should steals joy from our life. And like you just said, it steals inspiration. It puts a cover, a mask on inspiration. And it doesn't allow you to define success on your own terms. It doesn't allow you to define what inspires you and who inspires you either. So that's a deep question there. I love it.
Exactly. Like there's so much, and it doesn't matter from what perspective that you're listening to this, be it a personal struggle, or be it, your business growth, or be it with your kids, etc. Like, what are these things that we're looking at that we're just like, oh God, like, this is just something that I have to do, or I should be doing it. But how often do we really ask, why are we doing this?
Yeah, 100%. And it should be. We want it to be, we desire for it to be something you get to do, not something you should do or you have to do. And this is the perfect segue into my next question of, how do you define peak performance, and how do you arrive at this definition, given that you're throwing out those shoulds and you're asking the deeper why questions?
Flow state. I would say that peak performance, and I know this is something that, it's a lot of people talk to, but in my experience, and especially starting Badassery by B, I've found that flow state is something that I deeply crave, because it means that there isn't that brain fog. There isn't that like, oh, what should I be writing? What should I be looking to others for, right? It's more the ideas just flow out, and it's very much true to my own voice, to my own experiences, etc. And that's what I found.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. And when you talk about flow state, for me, I immediately go to rock climbing, because when I am climbing on the wall, whether it's the gym wall or especially an outdoor wall, when I'm not in flow and my mindset is not at peak performance, right? It's where the shoulds of, oh, the people on the ground are watching me and I should be climbing faster, or I should be whatever. But when I'm in a state of flow and what we would call like a warrior's mentality on the wall, it's a beautiful thing. There's very just clear intention of, I'm not going to try, or I'm not going to think about the shoulds. I'm going to do, I'm going to be, I'm going to enjoy. And I feel the same way when I'm working with my clients and when I am writing. And, we find our states of flow and our states of ease through practice and experience. As a quick follow-up on that, where are some of your best states or experiences that create flow state for you?
Where or when? Like, you mean place? Like, say, for example, if I'm having a shower, like, it's usually the worst possible times. So, like, when I'm trying to get to sleep, or when I'm in the shower. Okay, if it's a shower, I can get out and be like, all right, let me write this. So maybe that leans into when and where, but I've found that it's usually those times when, you're so busy just trying to do like the regular thing that you lose, like you don't overthink things, right? Or it's usually early in the morning, after the gym, you're like, okay, I've pushed out like all this stress, and then some ideas start coming in. Or another great way that I've found over the last couple of years has been reading newsletters. I haven't figured out the why yet. I'm sure it's like some kind of psychology reason, but
Yeah.
that's been it.
I appreciate that. And so I think there's intentional curated states of flow that we can create the more we understand ourselves and can build specific kinds of experiences. For me, a lot of the times that's climbing or writing or journaling or dancing or doing music. But then I think there are also, when we have what I would say inspiration is biting us, like with an idea, it's prompting us. Those are not always convenient times for me. A lot of times it's when I'm trying to go to bed or something, I don't know, like you said, in the shower. It's just kind of random moments. And it's this idea, this inspirational thing that you can't get out of your system. And that's when I'm like, I have to go and write this down and do something about it. And that puts me in flow as well.
It's so hard to nail down that specific flow state. Okay, I don't meditate. Like, I always try to be mindful. And I know a lot of people talk about like, okay, meditation's like my thing. It's the way I find it. But it's always like, for me, the moment that I'm just trying to be present with it rather than thinking, oh man, I got to do all these other things. And I think, what you were saying there with dancing and with climbing, that you're so focused on like being in that moment with that other person, being in that moment to like make sure you grab that right like handhold, that you can't really think on all those other things.
Right. Yeah. They're mindful activities. I think when we're doing intentional mindful activities, it opens that possibility for inspiration to spark, as well as for us to get into those states of flow. And the more we figure out what that looks like for us, and for some of us, that's not a passive state like meditation. It's an active state where it's intentional mindfulness. And so it just varies for each person. Now, obviously, this didn't happen magically. I'm sure you faced some challenges and obstacles along the way. Can you share a few of those that you had to face on your journey to peak performance?
The biggest one I found is burnout. And that happened, I found, more when I spent a year job hunting or starting the business. And at that time I was following the shoulds, you need to work so many hours. You should be doing this, you should be grinding, etc.
The shoulds.
I was following those shoulds, that's why I'm so vehement about it these days, because I'm just like, you can save yourself so much pain. And I already made like previous mistakes, like injuring myself when I was younger, thinking it's fine. And if I could say that to myself, or if I see somebody who's trying to lift something heavy by themselves, now I'm like trying to like go after them and like, put it down, like go find someone else to help you. So I'm so vehement about like, hey, don't push yourself. If you feel yourself that those hours don't work for you, and each their own, right? Sometimes working like excess hours, 18 hours, whatever, for some people that works. But long term, it's going to hit on your body, and like it's going to impact. So for me, what happened, and the trigger to understand like, okay, I need to avoid burnouts, is the point where I did it, that my body stopped me. I got sick thankfully it wasn't like hospital sick, but recognizing during that time, couldn't do anything. And afterwards, that flow state was there because I was like, hang on a second, this rest thing, it might be onto something. So taking those breaks, however many that is for you. And I think it really is experimenting. And that's what I've done a lot of over this last period. Is like, okay, what is a good time to go to the gym? What is a good time like to get the right number of hours for me that I feel fresh, that I feel inspired, and not going, I'm so tired, I want this week to be over, which is, you know, something that you're looking for.
Yeah. No, there's power in the rest, and it's really interesting the timing of this conversation, because I was telling Beatrice before we recorded that I was having a rough start to the week because our air conditioning went out, and I was not sleeping well, was super frustrated, and like a lot of other things happened. And one of our collaboration partners reached out and called me, and this is related to what you just shared. And I was kind of venting to this partner, collaboration partner, Peter, about my experience. And he had such sage advice because he's a publisher. He was like, Holly, you should write about this and share it. And I was like, well, yeah, that's great advice, Peter. I probably should. And so I did. I wrote about it, and that things turned around after writing it, because I think I needed to like externally vent and process through that. But also his advice was to look at every day as 3 days. So he says, your morning has been total shit. I agree with you. But that doesn't mean this afternoon and this evening need to be total shit. He's like, you should take 15 minutes to reset throughout each chapter of the day so that it doesn't bleed into the next chapter of the day, and you can kind of refocus your intent and let go. And that small piece of advice, even though I know to do this, when you're kind of in the thick of it, you forget about these small things. And so I was able to write, reset, and do that. And the rest of my day was great. And things turned around. The air conditioning works, and I don't feel burnt out. Now I'm still recovering from that. But also what Beatrice said and shared was rest creates flow state and ease. We have this really interesting false belief and myth, especially in the US. Beatrice isn't in the US, but in the US, there's this whole theology or belief that working hard is the American dream and that you have to work hard to be successful. And I would like to say that, yes, there is a time and a place for hard work, but it doesn't mean you need to be doing overwork and overgrinding. And to the point of burnout, it's not about the hours, it's about the quality of those hours. It's about the quality of that hard work. But it does not mean you need to be working 80 to 100 plus hours a week. That's insane. Nobody can do that. And those leaders are not going to be successful long term because they will burn out.
I mean, I had a good friend and business owner. They were telling me similar sort of thing. They're like, you know, they got deeply sick and they left the USA. They moved here to Valencia as well. And they said, look, I have several businesses, and the time that they moved forward was when I took a step back. And that hit me. Like at that time, I was like, oh man, I'm struggling. Like what do I need to do? What's the next step? Like where do I go? And he was like, just take a step back, take a break. And I'm like, but I don't want to. Right?
Counterintuitive, right?
Yeah, exactly. And he's like, every single time for me that I took a step back, it worked because it makes sense. The same thing my mentor said, like, we're doing all this work in the behind the scenes. And yes, we don't see that, but that still builds up. It builds up the trust of the people that we're trying to work with, etc. So that when we come back, like when we step away, it gives them that time to think about it a bit.
Yeah, 100%. Rest, taking breaks, intentionally stepping back is very powerful. There is what they say, there's power in the pause, and that applies to leadership and business. So we're going to shift gears slightly and we're going to talk about revenue. So Beatrice, when have you left money on the table and what did you do to fix it in your business?
So in terms of when I left revenue on the table, it's been when I've had customers earlier reach out and they were eager to work with me. They saw my message, they were excited, and I was like, okay, cool. And we'd get talking, and there'd be a few things. Either my gut would be like, something's not right. This is not a good fit. Or another thing is, did it disconnect?
No, you're here. It just paused for a second. So you were saying another thing is.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay. Where did it cut off? And
You were saying another thing is.
Okay. It's just internet. So one was the gut feeling. Another one was that they were too early in their journey. And those things, it's just like, okay, I'm going to put a hard foot down, even though a part of me is like, oh, you know, they're like excited to work with you. So I said no. And working through that, I recognized it was in my messaging and how I was writing it and who I was trying to target, who I was trying to talk to. And that all needed to be adapted and changed to be talking to the right person. So I'm not getting people that are approaching me too early in their journey, or there isn't that connect. So leaning into my voice and being like, okay, this is what you get. Like wherever you see me, be it podcast, be it LinkedIn, be it in person, it's the same me. And in terms of the message, who it is that I'm talking to, what part of their business journey it is, and what is the situation that they're facing, like being clear in that.
Yeah. I mean, those are all very good and intentional reasons to leave profit on the table. And I'm sure every business owner who is listening to this, we've had those scenarios where there might be like a small gut check and you're like, I'm still going to say yes. Or early in your business, you weren't clear. And so you said yes. And this is like the most difficult client. And even once you're further evolved in this, it is a hell yes. But then that season of working with that client goes away and then you have to have the breakup conversation. I think those are good reasons to leave revenue on the table because they're not aligned, and that's going to create burnout, misalignment. But I also love how you said you retargeted and redefined your message and leaned further into your voice, because I rarely today run into those situations because our marketing and voicing and clarity around who we serve is so hyper clear and hyper focused. So we don't have to even consider leaving revenue on the table anymore. Yeah. Cool. Well, this has been a great conversation. We're going to do 2 quick wrap-up questions. Beatrice, what's the best piece of advice you would share with others today?
Ask questions. Ask why. Ask how. Question those shoulds. That's the biggest one. Like if there is one thing that you take from this and you go and do, question those industry shoulds. Question the things that are commonly done, because they will help you in your messaging, in your positioning, in your life. That is the one turning factor for me, for my clients, etc.
I love it. Question their shoulds. And what's the legacy you wish to leave behind?
The same. Is that
That's fine. That's aligned.
Yeah. I push back on these, like, the norms, all these shoulds. I want there to be that knowing to people that, say, for example, even if you're thinking to move overseas, and like I've just had recent conversations with people about this, and they're like, oh, I'm not really happy with X or Y. And they're like, oh, maybe if, or, when or if I move to this location, the grass isn't necessarily greener. It's just a different kind of grass. It's choose your heart. And that's why it's better to just question those shoulds, question those norms, and see how you can pivot based on that.
Choose your hearts. I love it. And question your shoulds. Great sage wisdom from Beatrice. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me on, Holly.
You're so welcome. All right. If you found value from Beatrice today and you want to go into deeper conversation with her, please follow her through all the things. We'll have her links in the show notes as well as in the YouTube clips. Please make sure you check her out. She's one of our collaboration partners. She's a delight. And thank you so much for our listeners. We will see you on the next episode of our podcast.
Thank you for joining the show today. I hope you were inspired. More importantly, I hope you take action. If the show inspired you, I ask that you subscribe and share it with your network. Let's spread inspiration together today.